I'm Sherry Jonas, and this is Launch, a podcast for parents of older children in their 20s and 30s who are struggling to launch into adulthood. Today, I'm joined by Susan Raphael, an addiction and mental health clinician in private practice for over 20 years and the founder of Sustainable Recovery Counseling Services in Toronto. Susan works closely with individuals and families navigating addiction, mental health, and recovery. She's the author of What's Wrong with My Teen, a practical guide that helps parents respond to their child's addiction and mental health challenges with clarity, empathy, and effective boundaries. In this conversation, Susan shares her own personal story of addiction and recovery, which brings a powerful and honest perspective to the work she does. Today's topic is for any parent living this day in and day out, feeling overwhelmed, unsure how to talk to their child, how to set limits that actually lead to change, and how to take care of themselves while managing this difficult situation. Remember to hit the follow button so you never miss an episode, and please share this with a parent who needs to hear it. Ready?
Ready.
Okay. I get so excited when I start these things.
Good. That's good.
Susan, thank you for joining me here on Launch.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to do this with you, Sherry.
Yeah, well, really, there is no shortage of topics to talk about for parents with older children who are struggling. But this is one of the most important issues that parents are struggling with. And so I'm really looking forward to it. And I couldn't ask for a better guest to have this conversation with.
Thank you very much. Likewise, it's nice to talk to somebody who's very familiar kind of clinically and experientially with this population and this.
Yeah, sometimes I think
challenges.
Yeah, sometimes I think I just love doing this because I get to talk to like-minded individuals about it. But we do have a listener base.
We do.
And they are really in need of help. So let's give them that today. Let's give them as much as we possibly can. But before we talk about your work, I'd love to start off with your story, because what you do is so deeply rooted in your own lived experience.
It is, yes.
Yeah. Can you walk us through that? Can you walk us through those earlier days?
Sure. Sure. Grab your tissue boxes because it's a sad story. No, I'm just kidding. But it's recovery is my superpower. It's what's enabled me. My lived experience has enabled me to really understand and also get that credibility that clients understand that I have been there. So I was a normal teen growing up in suburb of Toronto, Don Mills. And as soon as I hit that age where the dopamine was flowing, I liked to party and I loved the dancing and I loved music and I liked the social element, and alcohol was always a companion through that. Experimenting with other substances. It was the 80s and there were uppers and bennies and things of that nature. So I was always really seeking that high, the not so much for marijuana or cannabis, but and so I was looking for that. I was looking to change the way I felt, so outside of myself, and there were some other experiences that kind of made me very thirsty at a young age. So when I found that as a way to cope, it just took off, and it wasn't really controlled. I probably qualified for a recovery program when I was about 17 or 18, but I was able to kind of get things online and go to school and very much make everything on the outside look okay, even though I was really imploding on the inside and didn't know how to ask for help. So I so love working with my young clients and families that are willing to ask for help. And if they ask for help, it's like, yes, recovery is so possible. And so, long story short, my addiction took me to emergency rooms, to police involvement. I was homeless in Vancouver in the mid to late 90s. And I relied on the shelter system. So for that, I was in an abusive relationship, but we were very much using substances. And that was a huge part of the abusive cycle and low self-esteem for me. So I did bootstrap my way up from being in a shelter system. I was kicked out of a shelter for drinking. So not being able to see the consequences of my behavior and how they were impacting. And so I went back to the abusive relationship because I'd been kicked out of the shelter, ended up back in the shelter system. So that was like a back and forth and back and forth. And I had a graduate education in psychology at that point. So self-knowledge was not enough to clean me up. It wasn't enough for me to realize that alcohol was what was holding me back. I was very much in the characteristics of addiction: denial, rationalization, minimization, not really telling anybody how much I needed alcohol. I was physically dependent. I had DTs and I had seizures. In the workplace, I was working in film in Vancouver and I had a seizure on set. I didn't really know at the time it was an alcoholic seizure. But later on, I kind of, when I understood more about the disease of addiction and the symptoms. So I was able to get out of that. And it was still a couple of years before I got sober. My family intervened. So family is a huge factor in my own story of getting involved, trying to fix and control me. But at that desperate time, I was willing to allow their support. But I was still drinking and I didn't want to give that up. I didn't know how to give it up and live life on life's terms until I ended up in detoxes and back in Toronto, and then in a treatment center where I started to understand that I was a sick person. I was a very sick young woman and not a bad young woman, because I felt really bad and really ashamed and really remorseful. And that's a terrible place to be. You wouldn't have known it from the outside because there's that pride. Like, we want to make it look like we got it together, desperate to look like I had it together. But I didn't, and I needed help. And that was the first step. Was almost 27 years ago today that I asked for help, and I was in treatment, and I never looked back.
Okay, I have a few questions. First of all, what age range are we talking about here? Because you started at what age and what time, at what period did you actually?
I started in substance involvement at about 16. I already had an active eating disorder. So the mental health stuff was there. We'd lost our mother to cancer when we were all adolescents. I have two sisters. So I was 13 when I lost my mom. So for me, that was the adverse childhood event. Not to say that I wouldn't have become alcoholic. That was not the, that doesn't matter. It's a very complex, mental health and addictions are very complex. Nevertheless, those were things that factored into the eating disorder, trying to really control my world. Started drinking at 16. Drugs were a part of it, cocaine and uppers, up until I couldn't afford them anymore. And I had to choose between alcohol or drugs. So I got sober when I was 30, I think 31. So the late 20s. And I was having all of those. Like, I was not employable. I was jumping around jobs. I was fired from jobs. I had left home thinking that Vancouver will help me. And I was in a relationship. And so other dependencies, like relationships with people who liked to drink just like I did, or more. So I could, in that codependent kind of lens, look at them and say, you need to work to support us. So you can't be drinking like that, where I didn't have to look at myself. So I was in that, transitional age of trying to adult, partying like a teenager when I was later in life. And then it wasn't a party anymore. It was just drinking to not get sick from withdrawal. It was just drinking to give because I didn't know what else to do.
So when did you reach out for help? What was the pivotal moment in your life where you went from 17 to 31 and really got the help that you needed?
Well, there's always these little stopgaps along the way. There's these little cracks. So, for example, there was a police officer in Vancouver who once again, the police were called for a domestic dispute between my boyfriend and I. And he said to me, he's not going to change. You have to change. You have to do something different. And I didn't do anything at that moment, but it was, he had compassion and he seemed to understand this pattern because he was an officer and had experience with that. And he conveyed to me in a compassionate way a message. And that was like a nugget that stuck with me. So I say my first moment of clarity was around the relationship, that this guy's not going to change and I have to leave. And that, so the penny kind of dropped for me around that, but it had nothing to do with drinking. It was like now I needed to drink to cope with everything I'd been through in the relationship. So, but my point being that there were these little nuggets of truth that would kind of come in, and they were often delivered in, I'd say most of the time delivered in nice, compassionate, not perfect, but they certainly weren't delivered with shame bombing, like, you smell like booze, you're going to have to leave, you're fired, which just made me retreat and feel more shame, more remorse. So I think there's ways to have consequences expressed or impact of behavior expressed without that guilt, shame, remorse cycle being triggered. And those are the moments that I remember, people telling me, you're worth more, you can do this, you deserve better. Maybe alcohol's the problem, although I resisted that. But in these compassionate messages. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You're actually incredibly accomplished right now, but you're a mental health and addiction specialist running a successful private practice. That is an incredible journey that you went on from these many years struggling with your addiction and mental health issues. So you've been doing this now 20 years?
Well, really since 99, I started working in the treatment center, but more in private practice style, probably since the early 2000s. And to be a part-time counselor in the treatment center that I went to was very powerful. And that's where all the counselors were in recovery. And that was a huge component of me getting well, because they weren't a psychiatrist I was talking to. They weren't a social worker. They weren't a doctor. They were women who had been in the dark places I had been, and many worse too, losing their kids, or just terrible, terrible consequences of addiction and mental health issues. And I could see that they were recovering, and that having that modeled to me with someone with that lived experience, you just can't put into words how meaningful that is. That if it was possible for them, it's got to be possible. Maybe there's hope for me.
So there's power in this community, for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And there's many paths to recovery as well. So finding someone or finding community and connection around recovery, even if you don't choose abstinence, there's so much support there. And there's so much more today than there was when I was coming through. So many more programs. We hear a lot about the barriers, and there's definitely barriers that exist and the wait lists, but there are a lot more resources out there online. And so I'm always hopeful that there's lots. People don't always know how to navigate systems, and that's where professionals like us can be very helpful. We can we can give people the information they might be lacking.
Yeah. So what have you noticed? I'm curious, in the past 5 years, have there been a lot of changes?
Yes, well, of course we have post-pandemic, and all the young folks that went through the pandemic, either maybe in their, adulting stages. And so they were definitely impacted. So there's that. Then there's also a lot of, like, from the lens of a mental health and addiction clinician, there are challenges in the world. I think teens and young people trying to adult launch, they are under more pressure and stress now than almost ever before. And parents are too. Some of those are online pulls to gambling, to gaming, to kind of being in this metaverse, not as able to function in the real world, real relationships. There's political, socioeconomic issues. There are always those, but I think there's a lot that young people are struggling with. Today that's very different. Cannabis is huge too, right? And it's kind of the silent killer, or, we don't have these detrimental, we don't see people robbing banks necessarily or getting involved in gang crime for cannabis. But it's the slow, like the retreating to the basement, video gaming, not socializing, not engaging in personal hygiene. It's that kind of like, it's really a slippery slope with cannabis. So I see a lot of that. Vaping as well. Vaping is, tremendously challenging for the developing lung system, and the consequences of that are huge. So those are some of the trends or things that are cropping up, say, in the last five years that I'm noticing. And parents don't understand these factors either. Vaping cannabis, vaping nicotine, all the different all the different modes of cannabis delivery through edibles, there are so many different products out there, and it's a lot for parents to try to keep up with.
Right. So when someone comes to you and they say, I need help with my kid, where do you begin?
Good question. Well, I ask them, I really try to meet them where they're at. So I will ask them, and my guide, my book does outline my process. So ask them, what are the behaviors and symptoms that they're seeing? Don't interpret it for me, but tell me what you're actually seeing. So are you seeing signs, symptoms, behaviors that you're concerned about? And then we'll kind of rule out, depending on the age and stage of the young person, if they're 25 and up, if they're 35 and up, if they're 30 and up. There's sort of different functional indicators that we'd look for, right?
Yeah.
But how are they doing, and how are you doing? Because there's this myth that the only person that needs to change is the one with the mental health or addictive problem. And so that's a real misnomer, because the family is a system, whether the young person's out at school or out at a job or living in the home or outside of the home. The family is still a system. And when one person in the family changes, one person in a system changes, everyone changes. So you have to be willing to be on that change process. And it's not this idea of dropping them off at my office and I'm going to fix them and then bring them back to you. Everyone needs to have their process, and the parents having a parallel process. There's lots of evidence to support that is really helpful for the challenged young person.
Mm-hmm. And how common is it for you to see addiction and mental health challenges show up together?
More common than not. So I think there's stats around co-occurring. So when there's a mental health issue alongside, sometimes the mental health issue reveals itself during the recovery process too, or can worsen during the recovery process. So it's very common. So we have to be very skilled at understanding what's going on. And then addiction is the one thing that we can actually work at changing. So we can't necessarily, we can treat symptoms of mental health issues, but we can eliminate substances, and then let's see what we have. We don't have to do it forever. It doesn't have to be for the rest of your life. But if we really want to understand what's going on, let's take a break from substance, and then we can see what's coming up for you. Let's see if the medications that you've been on are actually working better. So it's definitely part of the package. It can sometimes be a bit, sometimes the support system wants to see the issue as either mental health or addiction. And it would be nice if it were quite that binary, but it's not. It's very, co-occurring, comorbid, concurrent. It's happening together. Plus, depending on the full, we understand that the brain is still developing till at least 25. If substances have been involved, that development is going to be interrupted and impacted. So what's their developmental trajectory, right? Have they been using since they were adolescents, which is going to be of greater impact and longer term impact to their brain development, to their brain function. So these are all important things to kind of consider, and not to jump to any big conclusions or diagnoses. I'm not a diagnostician, but I love the idea that it's not the diagnosis that we need to really look at, it's the response to the diagnosis. Like, how are we treating it? How are we understanding what's going on, and how are we, allowing for what's going on, and how are we taking care of ourselves so that we're not letting this take over the family or take over the energy of the family or the balance of power, or, there's a lot of excuse making around. He has anxiety and depression. Okay, and he's an adult, and those are his responsibilities now. So what is he doing to take responsibility for those? And what are you doing to take responsibility for helping him launch and thrive? That doesn't become an excuse that we don't ask anything of an individual who is probably more capable than they've been treated, for a number of factors. Many parents come to me and it feels like they're being held hostage by these behaviors and symptoms.
Right.
And they're being made to buy into a reality that they feel very powerless to change. So I'll help them understand that actually it's their house, and they're paying the mortgage, and they're paying for the Wi-Fi, and they're paying for the video games, and they're paying for the food, and maybe the education or insuring a car. So they have a lot more power and ability to contribute to conditions that create change without saying, I'm trying to fix you, I'm trying to change you, right? Mm-hmm. So it's very nuanced, it's very counterintuitive, because you have to be loving and yet you have to be firm with some boundaries and limits that enable change of behavior to happen that maybe otherwise wouldn't. So maybe it's not problematic use, but if your daughter is left to their own devices using cannabis and not working and not in school and not launching, if that goes on for a period of time, it's going to be a lot harder to change.
Right.
And I do have parents call where they're 40 and 45, and this has been going on those are really,
I know,
hard situations to unpack. So, you don't have to, there's no like, if I don't address it today, I'm going to have a 45-year-old in the basement, but you don't want that end. And that's where talking to other parents who have been there through parent peer support groups or through, codependency groups or through Al-Anon or Nar-Anon can be super helpful and supportive, because you don't want it to get there, but you're going to learn, you're going to hear what other folks did and what was helpful and what wasn't helpful.
Yeah. So you touched on boundaries, and I was saving that for a little bit, but let's talk about that. What are the boundaries that parents can set, the limits that they can put, because they feel very, very powerless when it comes to that?
They feel very powerless. Yes. So helping them understand where they do have some power. And there is a lot of power in the loving relationship that they have, and in the connection that they have with their adult child. So don't ever underestimate that. I mean, particularly if they're in your home, they are close to you, and maybe they're there because they don't have other options at the moment, but they're still there. And so it's that kind of tightrope of being loving, staying connected, and asking for healthy limits. So look, the household shuts down at a certain time. Can we talk about when when are you prepared to shut down? Because actually we're going to turn the internet off because no one's using it at night. So, often there's this reverse sleep schedule that young adults can have. So if the rest of the household is running, and if they don't have a job that happens at nighttime, why are they up all night, right? And so maybe that's a condition that you want to create some influence over. And again, you're not trying to control, you're trying to influence that. Why are they getting this special treatment that they're up all night and perhaps keeping other people up at night? Like we want to eliminate where they're being treated sort of specially or with kit gloves or tippy-toed around. Anytime you feel that you're walking on eggshells, something's not right with that. So why, looking at your own behavior and why are you not addressing it, and coaching parents on scripts and how to have these conversations about a healthy limit. Again, it's their house, so they have, and if it's not their house, if they're helping to support outside of the home, there's still levers of influence that parents have a connection to. Maybe they're paying for education,
right,
or maybe they're helping with student loans. So there's always these areas of influence that if you can have a rational chat with them, great. If you can't, then it has to be a little bit more like, look, something's going to change, not immediately, not tomorrow, but we'd like you to go and talk to somebody to get an idea of how you're going to respond to this change. And the change is going to happen in 3 months. So in the first month, we'd like you to talk to somebody. In the second month, have a little bit of a plan of how you're going to respond. Maybe it's a moving out plan. Maybe it's a getting a job plan. Maybe it's a stopping substance use plan that impacts all of that as well. But you get to, you establish a plan and then present it back to us, and we'll kind of negotiate from there. Right. If it's gotten to a bit more of like push comes to shove, then yes, things have to be a little more line in the sand. But it can also happen slowly. Like maybe you stop driving them to work. Maybe you stop providing them with internet and they have to pay for it themselves. Maybe you start to just take a little bit of the give them responsibility back. Because often, and so this is what we'll do together. We'll kind of establish what you're supporting, what you're not. Where do you feel like you could make some changes? I don't tell them what to do. I don't control them. I ask them where they might be willing to make a bit of a change. And it doesn't have to be this. Parents will often go to, I'm never going to kick them out of the house. I said, well, who said anything about that yet?
Right.
Right. And actually, the way I see it is if you're not prepared to live under the rules and the family values of the household, you're choosing to not be here.
Right.
We're not kicking you out.
Right.
You're choosing to not be a part of the framework that's here. And every family has that framework. It's just not always conscious until you start flushing this out. Parents' peace of mind is, for me, the most important thing. I'm working with them. So trying to help them understand that their peace of mind can't be conditional on, well, when my kids stop smoking weed, I'll be happy. I'm going to start worrying about myself when they do this. That's way too conditional. And we can't put off our own happiness and our own peace, waiting for someone else to do kind of what we want.
Yeah. So you wrote a book.
I did.
What's Wrong with My Teen? It's in the corner there. I should say corner. So tell us about it. Tell us about.
So during the pandemic, I started taking writing courses to have something to do, and my practice moved online. And I was looking at writing a bit more about my recovery story, and then after a while of taking courses and working with coaches, and the idea of writing what I do for a living, and how I help people, and what my process is. I decided that was going to be a good idea. And it was something like another school shooting. And I thought, I can't control that. But what I can do is document what works in the 20 years I've been working with families, what young people have been telling me works, all their secrets. And they tell me a lot because I'm not their parent. And parents tell me a lot too, and seeing the anxiety, so I thought this is something I can contribute to the world. And it's not, well, at first I thought it's not going to be that hard. I banged out an outline of all the chapters: boundaries, enabling the brain, all of the steps that we kind of go through when we're working with folks and families, boundaries. But that those nuances too, that it's very counterintuitive that you have to let go in order to let them kind of thrive or let them fail their way forward. So trying to explain those things. So it's full of case scenarios. It's really a guide to meet parents where they're at. It's quite simply framed. There are questions for reflection. There are summaries at the end of every chapter. There's some additional tools on my website. And I really wanted it to be a tool filled and script filled as well, because that's what I struggle with in my relationships with people, are even my clients, like I have to set boundaries with clients. They don't show up, or they're late, or they don't pay. It's like I have to go through all that with people too. And it's not easy stuff. So I've always benefited from scripts of, and a lot of parents will struggle with having the right words.
Yeah.
Because they're used to this kind of dancing around or beating around the bush or walking on eggshells, as they'll say, right?
I'm curious why you called it with my teen. Why, what's wrong with my kid? Like, right?
What's wrong with my kid? Yeah.
What's wrong with my kid?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good title too. We didn't think about that one. And I think I said to you, like, young adult who's living at home with mental health, smoking weed and failing to launch, didn't fit on the cover, right?
Right.
Or the parent with their struggles too. Like, I'm not sleeping at night, and I'm full of anxiety, and I'm full of guilt. And did I do something to, so we had to come up with a title. But the reality is I work with young people, and some have been in my practice since they were teens, and they're now young adults. Some are full adults with their own families now, and we're still in touch, because they sometimes they'll come back for a little bit of a check-in or tune-up or something, and I love that. And parents too, they'll come back for another child that they're working with. Sometimes work with families, like cousins and aunts and uncles, because there's this extended system, and they know that I understand this little parts of the system, so it's easier for me to get that history. So the title is
but it's not restricted to teens.
Absolutely not.
Okay,
no. In fact, younger parents could read it too. I talk a lot about having these conversations about, cell phone's a big one right now, having a smartphone, and what age and things like that. Like, what age are you going to talk about? Because you got to be realistic. When you hand a young person this is a computer, so we're basically sending them out in the world with predators. We're sending them out in the world with people that are going to try to hack their financial information. You're having them consent to things that as children, they can't really even consent to, but as soon as they open Google, they've consented, right? So there's a lot of factors with these devices that we put in the hands of children, and then say, go to bed, take your access to predators, and your access to hackers, and your access to drug menus delivered to you on Snapchat every 7 minutes, or whatever the stat is, and have a good night's sleep, and expect that they're not going to, or video gaming or all of that. So these are real issues. So I think any age can benefit from understanding how to better communicate with your child, with your kid, at whatever age.
In your book, you write about the importance of understanding what's underneath the behavior, or below the surface, so to speak. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So again, the behaviors tell us a story, right? The parents have a gut feel when things are off. So responding to that, trusting your gut, whatever the signs you're seeing, are they normal for your young person, or are they abnormal? And I think another big myth out there is that, not my kid. like, we're a good family, we talk about things, or, this is not going to happen to us. Like, addiction does not discriminate.
Mm-hmm.
So sure, there's genetic histories, there are factors, but addiction and mental health disorders do not discriminate. Sometimes they skip generations. Sometimes there's, so don't believe that it won't happen to you. And I think that, not in a scary kind of a ominous way, but just be open, keep an open mind that maybe they're struggling more than they're saying, and talking to them about their mental health.
Yeah. So you touched on this earlier, and I kind of want to go back to it. You said something about connection, and I love that. I love that you mentioned how important connection is, because the problem is that parents are feeling very disconnected from their kids.
Yes.
And they don't know how to make that connection. So when things are really feeling scary and out of control for them, what suggestions can you make to parents to start reestablishing a connection again?
Anything that they can do to connect. Doesn't mean that it's going to be responded to immediately. But we have this technology, so text them. If they're not answering you, that's fine. Don't ask them a yes or no question. Just maybe make a statement like, thinking about you, wondering how your day was, haven't seen you emerge yet. I'm around. I'm here if you want to chat. I'm here if you want to go for ice cream. I'm here if you want to walk the dog. It doesn't always have to be talking about the problem, right? So, and if you do talk about the problem or whatever, fine. Then the next conversation or opportunity for connection could be very light and benign. Something funny, share a meme or a joke or something lighthearted, and expect that you're going to get the rebuff. Expect that they're going to, roll their eyes. That's just the stage that they're at. It's okay, but just keep doing it. Like, we cannot take this stuff personally. Yeah. If they're in a fit, or if they're in a mood, or if they're not talking to you, like, just validate your own attempts to try. It doesn't mean that every time you try to connect, it has to be successful. Just keep trying. And that's not so easy, because parents will take it personally. They will feel bad. Right. And so they know their kid best, and, bring them their favorite food. But if you're thinking about them, or see just something else, well, tell them how your day is. It doesn't all have to be these, right? How was your day? How was school? Not an open-ended question. Ask them open-ended questions. I've got a list in my material, like open-ended questions.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because you do provide samples and scripts and letters. So for parents who really have trouble with those conversations, they really they do. There's a point where every parent says, I don't know what to say anymore. And so I love the fact that you actually offer these scripts in your book. But can you share a few of those phrases, and especially the ones that reduce defensiveness or that encourage open dialogue?
Yeah, so it's essential to use an I statement rather than, as soon as we say you, there's like this sense of the fingers pointing at them. Right. So take that finger and point it back to yourself and share something. I have noticed, tell me if I'm right or wrong, you seem sad these days. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, let you know that I'm here. Like, really simple. And if they respond to that, great. Then maybe you add a bit more. But say less and listen more. So listen and silent have the exact same letters in them. Be silent. Restrain your judgment. So that takes some time to, like, slow down what's going on in our head. My thoughts and my mouth are like on a high impulse. I often speak what I'm thinking immediately. So slow that down and really actively listen. It's not about you lecturing. It's not about, you've already parented them the essentials. You have already given them the essentials. So back off from the needing to educate them, needing to tell them how they need to do this. It's up to them to fail their way forward. It's up to them to make their mistakes. Trust them to make the mistakes and learn. And because they will feel that you don't feel they're capable. They will sense that. They don't have the language yet, maybe, particularly if they're struggling to understand or to say that, when you do that for me, it makes me feel like I don't have the capability to do it for myself, and that you don't believe in me. And that makes me feel really bad about myself. Well, they don't have that language, but they will feel that you've done something for them that they can do for themselves. And then they also get used to that, and it becomes somewhat of a learned helplessness. So the I statements is not, you're not creating, and it's not, I think that you need to go and talk to a counselor. It's, I've noticed, or I'm worried, and that's my worry is not your concern, but I want to bring this up because I notice that, and I want to let you know that I'm here for you, and that I validate that it seems like you're struggling. And anytime you want to talk further about it, I'm here. So the open-ended, not asking them yes or no questions too. So the I statement, we statement, your dad and I, your mom and I, we, your siblings and I, you don't all have to be on the same page, but you all care and you're all concerned. That's really what matters. Not splicing who's, people have different approaches. That's okay. But showing that you're unified.
Yeah.
And then the, like really a softness in tone, not confronting them ever, really. You're approaching them. So I don't suggest approaching them in their space. A lot of young people will tell me that they're getting chased around the house by the parent, and they just need to be left alone. Maybe don't have words for that, but their feet are speaking for them because they're kind of walking around the house trying to get away from the parents. So don't go into their room. That's their room. But if they don't come out of their room, that's problematic. You could stand on the door frame and say, I need you to come out because there's a couple of things I want to express to you for you to just listen to.
It's interesting that you say not to go into their room, because the parents that I talk to, that's the only place where their kids are.
Yeah. So is the door closed all the time?
There's doors closed. They're there 24/7. They're living life in a silo, and they want to be left alone. So we're at a bit of a different stage here. We're at that. This has been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
They don't want the help. So it's a very different situation. They want their parents to leave them alone, and they have left them alone for a long enough period of time where they're seeing, left to your own devices, you're not actually doing anything with your life. And I want to help you. And I listen to your statements, and I'm sort of smiling because, parents have asked me, how do I say it? How do I start the conversation? How do I phrase the boundaries? And it's all about, like you said, I've written 25 boundary setting statements for parents. 25. I just kept going. I'm uncomfortable with this. I can't watch this anymore. I love you too much to watch you do this anymore. I'm uncomfortable. How can we move forward? What can I do to help you? And all these things, because it's true. Everything you're saying is true. You cannot keep telling them what to do. They know what they know. They're not happy. I know that they're not happy in those rooms. When you even say, like, let's go for an ice cream, they don't even know what to do anymore outside of their bedroom. It's become, in a post-COVID world, it's become their only place they go and do. And they've lost connection and community and everything. So we're really in an epidemic with these kids that are just hunkered down thinking, I'll just stay here until you die. And I know that sounds terribly morbid. At that point, though, they've lost all hope. They have no idea what to do. And I'm trying to give parents the confidence, the empowerment, the courage to say, this is not working anymore.
Yeah,
it's
this
not
is
working.
not okay.
In this house, doors closed, gaming in your room. Like, what would happen if we pulled the plug on the Wi-Fi at 11 o'clock at night? What would happen if we said, you know what, your console, I want your console outside your bedroom door at midnight. I want, lock your phone. Like, start helping these kids, because this has become such a spiraling lifestyle that they're like in a vortex of, I don't even know how to get out. And so I love that you've talked about connection. I love that you've talked about, scripts that you can help parents. But we're really in a bind here. This isn't like, right. So it's not just like, maybe that's where, if you get them when they're early, at the early stages, then
doesn't get to that point.
Doesn't get to that point. But I'm talking
but realistically, people that you and I are working with, they're at that point. They're at that crisis. They're in the family crisis.
Yes.
And the whole family's being impacted by it because maybe siblings have an opinion on that. And why aren't you guys doing something about it? Right. So I think it's really important to realize that you're not helping them by buying into their avoidance and letting them deteriorate. So they can die they can die in that room too.
Oh God. Yeah. So that's what they should be afraid of. Not that they're going to be harming themselves outside of the house, that what's happening inside the house is actually
dire. It's
a slow erosion of their psyche, of their soul, of their life.
Yeah.
And so standing outside that door is not, for me, that's not enough. It's opening the door, opening the blinds, shutting. And it's not, again, to your point back in the beginning, you said not overnight. We don't do these things to them overnight, but to perpetuate it by doing nothing is where I see the biggest crime. And I want parents to not feel so helpless. I know these kids want their parents to knock on that door and tell me what I can do to start changing my life around. Give me some restriction. I know they resist it at first, but I believe that.
But they need it. They need it. Yeah.
And they'll respond to it with, in baby steps.
Yeah.
And instead of saying, like you said something earlier, you said, bring them their favorite food. And I'm thinking, how about you come out of the room and make us dinner? I'll leave you alone. Whatever you want to make us do. You know what I love, what you love. We'll eat the same thing, but you make dinner for us. I know you're capable because you know how to feed yourself, but I feel like you making that tonight it's on you. You make us dinner.
I think that's a great idea. That could be, communicated via note slid under the door, or locked. We're not comfortable with the door closing behavior, so just a week from Friday, the door's coming off.
Right.
Right. The internet's being. We're not comfortable contributing to this, what we're seeing. So if you want to set up your own system, that's out of your pocket or whatever, but we're not comfortable. We don't feel that it's something that we can condone anymore because it doesn't make us feel like we're being good parents. Or you can say, we've messed up. Whatever we've done to contribute to this,
we've let it go on too far.
We're going to own that piece. And what are you going to do? We need you to do something different. You decide what, and you have to give these points, deadlines, and we will be following up and then follow up. Right. Just like a boundary. Don't set a limit and then not follow through. Oh, well, and again, boundaries aren't about controlling other people. They're about we're no longer comfortable with this. So we're going to start making changes. We're going to start asking more of you because we can't contribute to this. We want to contribute to a condition that changes and we're not. Right. So the jig is up. Yeah. We're going to change. You're going to change. And it doesn't have to be, again, dramatic. It could be that make dinner once a week. Right. And slowly start to ask more responsibility of them, maybe contribute more to the bills, maybe, maybe the console's coming out, whatever they're doing. And you can't do nothing for 24 hours a day. So they're doing something, but they're online or they're using cannabis or they're talking to friends, they're doing something. So the less you can feed that, whatever it is that they're spending their time doing. Yeah. And the more responsibility you can give them. That's how the world works. So don't protect them from the way the world works. And that's really what you're doing. You're protecting them from the universe. Yeah. The real world would ask more of them. So why aren't you?
Yeah. I read a quote from an article that from you that really spoke to me. So I want to share it with our listener. You say, start where your heart breaks. Can you elaborate on that? Because so many parents are struggling, and I feel like it would really speak to them. Start where your heart breaks.
Yeah, where you're really, really struggling. So, and it might be for the parent, it might be their feelings of responsibility, guilt or shame. They could start there with owning a little bit, like I'm feeling like a really bad parent. And again, that's not on you, but I know as a parent trying to do better that I've got to change something. And I know it's going to be uncomfortable for you, but I can't take responsibility for that. I need to let you take responsibility for your life a bit more. And that's really hard for me to do, but I'm going to try. And that's why I'm talking to Sherry. That's why I'm talking to Susan to get some, you know how many times I'll have a call with a parent and they're outside in their car.
Oh God, I know.
Because they don't want their kid to know that they're talking to somebody, or also the kid might come in and interrupt, so they don't have a private space in their home. Like, what is wrong with this picture? Like everything is upside down, everything is topsy-turvy. So that actually tells me a lot about what's going on in that family, just from that example.
Susan, I had a parenting course going on last month, and they were in their car.
Yeah.
And I love these parents. So if they're listening, I love them so much. But they're so afraid. And
they're probably listening from the car.
But I said to them, you need to tell them that you're speaking to somebody. You need to tell them that you're taking a course. They need to know that you're making this effort. It's okay.
Yes.
It's okay. Yeah. You're taking responsibility for your actions, for the lack of, for not getting involved more. You're taking ownership, so they can too.
Yeah.
And it's hard. They are literally the expression. They're walking around. They're afraid to speak in front of them.
Yes,
but they shouldn't be. This is a good thing. This is a good thing that we're doing here.
Yeah.
You know?
This is one of those nuanced shifts that parents will start to make, and I love it when I'm working with families and they'll come to me one week and I can just tell that something has shifted. And I'm like, what did you do this week? Like what? Yeah. Somehow the penny has dropped and they're starting, their language they're using is different, or they tell me about a conversation they had with their kid. And it's just like, I can sense this shift. Yeah. And maybe they've, I don't know, something has happened.
Something has shifted. The door is opening.
Yeah.
This light is shining through. I know exactly what you mean.
That's just terrific to feel that awareness. And so a lot of what we do is education around like raising that awareness, that empowering parents, that there are things that they can try and do. And it's not up to me to kind of, solution for them, because God knows they're trying to solution for their kid. And that's how well is that going? But we'll sort of narrow things down, and I'll elicit from them what the solutions are for them. Mm-hmm. They'll tell me, but I have to really probe them because they want me to tell them what to do. But the chances are 9 out of 10 things I'll say, they'll like, that's not going to work.
Right.
So the same with my client. So I've tried that. I've done that. I tried that boundaries thing.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So, but they, we approach it from a different way. And sometimes they do want the script. So we'll work on that together. I'll say, text me what you come up with and let's massage it a bit. Because words do really matter.
100%.
Language matters. Labels matter. Diagnoses being tossed around matter. So those things can be important.
Yeah.
So start where your heart is breaking, and also start doing for yourself, like talking to someone, going to sleep at night, telling them, my phone is going to be turned off at such and such a time. So if you need me, let me know before that time. Right. Just trying to get some of that peace and serenity back in any way that you can. In any way that is going to, the first night you might not sleep very well, but the next night you might. And then if they call you before that time on the third night, boy, you've really communicated to them, haven't you? Yeah. And then you're probably going to sleep because they got to you before you shut your phone down.
Right.
And you know that they've heard your message. They're not going to believe you at first because they're not used to you putting yourself first.
Right.
So you really have to demonstrate in small ways that, I say what I mean and I mean what I say.
All of this that you're saying is it also contributes to the modeling aspect.
Yes,
So
totally.
right. So if you're starting to take care of yourself again, instead of just like in this constant state of anxiety and fear and worry, and you've lost yourself, you've cut yourself off from people because you just feel like you have to be there all the time. And then you just turn around one day and say, you know what? And I suggest this to parents, what do you love to do?
Yeah.
When was the last time you did what you love to do?
Yeah.
You're modeling that. So go out and do something that you love to do. Your mood will change. You'll come into the house, you'll turn the music on, have a happier home. Next thing you know, they're peeking out going, what are you doing? I'm doing some yoga. I'm working. I'm whatever it is. But like self-care is not just for yourself. It's also for your young adults to see that you're actually.
And sometimes I sell it that way because they're so unprepared to do something that's just good for them because they're so wrapped up in their kid at this time of life. And so, well, actually, it might have a little bit of a ripple effect. So, I know it's not guaranteed, but you might actually be changing them if you make a change for yourself.
Yeah.
That will, and that's very true. Like there is that ripple effect and that butterfly effect.
Right.
When we start to make a change, because the system will change a little bit. I'm not going to make your lunches anymore.
Oh God, stop doing that.
Or I'm going to,
stop doing that right now. That's ridiculous. You have an adult at home.
I'm not going to make your breakfast and leave it outside your door, right?
Yeah,
so
stop.
Stop making it quite so easy for them, and also take some of your time back and take some of your and don't buy into this notion that you're only as happy as your most miserable child, because that really that's so not true. You have to be happy and you have to model seeking your own happiness. And if that's a new shift, yes, it's going to be strange for you. It's going to be strange for your kid, but it's actually, you're teaching them that we all need to come first. We all need to look after ourselves in order to be good caregivers, good wives, good sisters, good moms, good counselors. I have to take care of myself, and I model that. I don't pretend it just all comes naturally. Who is that going to benefit?
No. And also, stop complaining so much. You're sitting here complaining about work and the economy and the price of this and the price of that in the meantime, and then you want to know why your kid doesn't want to go get a job, because what's the point?
Absolutely.
Everything's so expensive. So even how you speak about what's going on in the world, listen to yourself, because you're not encouraging them to want to go out and live in the world if the world is such a terrible place to be. Meanwhile, you're going out every day, you're working, you're living, you're doing what you have to do. And so don't make it sound like everything is just doom and gloom.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's something else that you said in another article, probably the same, but I really want to say it because it is powerful. It's no one's fault that they have mental illness, but it is their responsibility to manage it. I want to talk about that responsibility because many parents listening feel helpless and are desperate for advice for those who are just listening and not watching, air quotes, they're dealing with an adult at home and they feel that they can't help them. So what suggestions do you say to parents in that situation?
Well, to really understand what that means, that it's not, they're not a bad kid, and to validate the kid that they're not bad. They're having some experiences of substance use disorder. They're having some experiences of depression, anxiety, ADHD, trauma, whatever the things are. And that is their responsibility. As much as if they had diabetes, we wouldn't be taking their medication for them. We'd be allowing them to use the tools that have been provided to them by their healthcare practitioner to manage this condition, which is theirs to manage. So if they're not managing it, and if
That's
you're
what I was going to ask you,
allowing that to happen, then you're not contributing to their taking care of their condition or illness or disease either.
But what do you do in that situation? A parent says, I know, and I have spoken to parents who will put the medication out. They'll put it right there where they can take it. And I'm like, well, okay, but you don't have to do that. Yeah. But if they feel that if they don't give them the medication, they won't take it. These kids this is really a tough situation, because what do you do in a situation where the kid does not want to take responsibility for this quote, for managing their mental health, and the parent doesn't know what to do?
It easy for them to not do it. So, something that's important like that medication, I might not start there, but I might start with this last time you were in hospital, this is what the treatment plan recommended was. We need you to start following that. We're not doctors. This is what was recommended. Medication, counseling, whatever, or come back in 6, right? Like, you take some ownership over, you were hospitalized. You want to, you needed to be hospitalized. So all we're suggesting is that you follow through with the plan that was recommended to you. If you have a problem with that, go find another doctor and get a different plan. But we're not comfortable with you living here, not following the conditions of that plan. And the same goes for treatment. When they go to treatment, if they go to an inpatient or outpatient, there are recommendations that come from that treatment center. And if they're not following those recommendations when they come home, they're likely going to return to use or return to behavior. So just like if they're not taking their diabetes medication, they're going to go into some kind of diabetic shock. Like it's not rocket science here. So if there have been recommendations been made, oh, I don't like what they said. Well, who asked you to like it? Mm-hmm. It's not, I don't like having Crohn's disease. There's certain things that I need to do to manage it. And otherwise I suffer the consequences. If I was still living at home, everybody else would be suffering those consequences too. Mm-hmm. So it's making those small changes to ensure that they are acknowledging that they have some responsibility here. And you're not telling them to do that. The doctor who you took them to the hospital and they were in there told them to do that. So again, like just getting really clear on what's their part to do and what are you protecting or what are you rescuing them from following through with. And so maybe they can't live in your house because you're not comfortable to watch them not take responsibility. So then maybe you work on a plan where they're going to be somewhere on a medical leave or on the supplement that can help their income and live somewhere where they can afford to not take responsibility for their condition. And right. It doesn't always mean they're going to be homeless living under a bridge. There's lots of steps in between there. But does it mean that they have to live in an all expenses? Like often I'll say to parents, I want to come live at your house. Right. There's a concierge and there's a parking and there's every room and board covered. Right. Like I don't have to work. I don't have to go to school. Like I'll come and live there. Or maybe you guys should move out since it's unmanageable. And let them fend for themselves. I had a family with three kids who were 3 adult children living in the home, and it was chaos. So, well, why don't you guys move out? Go rent a place. And they started to take some trips, and they started to shift things and stopped trying to fix the one child that had mental health issues. So you just got to try some different things and see how you sleep at night. Right. And talk to somebody who you can really get the truth from to understand that maybe the shift of responsibility and power and anxiety in the household has been off balance, and that you're holding way too much of that anxiety, responsibility, and they're kind of holding you. They don't want to change, so don't make it easy for them not to want to change. It doesn't have to be comfortable. They could not want to do everything that they don't want to do, but you don't have to make it easy for them to do that, to be in that position. Right. And it's tough, but starting somewhere, whether it's the door coming off the hinges or the internet or the console being, in the basement or in a family zone, so they have to come out, whatever it is, start to, or have them pay for some things. Running out of money is a pretty good motivator.
Oh, a lot of these kids aren't working, Susan. It's not about running around. They're not even working. They're just, so sometimes it's so easy for us to see because we're not so close to it. Mm-hmm. And the parents will say, I can't get them off their phone or I can't get them off internet. And I'm like, well, who's paying for that?
Yes, and exactly.
I'm not there to shame. Again, I want to hug them all because I know that they're struggling, but Like, stop paying for that stuff. Get them off the family phone
Stop
plan.
contributing to the problem that you're complaining about, right? So start contributing to a change that you want to see.
But
and so we help them navigate that, right? Because they can't see that necessarily. They can, and they're often in their trauma brain. They're blocked off. They're in crisis mode. They've neglected their sleep, their self-care. So they're not firing on all cylinders either.
Right.
So we need to help, we're willing to help them to see things from our perspective, and other parents help them see it. So that's why the other parents are key in your family groups, in your parent groups, to talk about and laugh about some of this too. Like, it's kind of ridiculous at times. So we gotta shake it off and take care of what we can, change what we can.
Mm-hmm.
There's always something that can change.
Always.
Always, and start small. So it's not this radical, like, you're out by next Friday, you're out of the house.
But even the wording, I'm not comfortable watching you not take your medication. It's like I can no longer give you permission by me not doing anything about this.
That's right.
I can't watch this anymore. I love you too much to let you throw your life away.
Right.
Is enough of like saying a parent saying, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be around forever.
No, exactly. My job is to prepare you for life, for outside of this, for life, and for life on life's terms, not life on the terms that I create for you, which make it super easy to neglect what you're responsible for. Yeah. That's not life. I mean, and we see that with kids that have endowments or trusts or have a lot of material things, as they're not asked to participate in the world in the same way. So it's that becomes a clinical issue too.
How about one parent supporting the adult child and the other parents not supporting financially? Mm-hmm. That's a whole other conversation, which we don't have time for. But there's a lot of complex situations and a lot of easy buttons to press. And I think that
easy. Yes, that's true.
We're here. Yeah. Helping, ready to give them all the tools if they want us. I'm going to leave your contact information. Your book, What's Wrong with My Teen, is available. It's right there. I love that you put it out there, but it'll be in the show notes. It's not just for teens. I always say this to parents: you think you have a 20-something or 30-something-year-old, but they're mentally and emotionally and developmentally, they're in the teens still. They got stuck there. So teens is just a number. It really is. Age is just a number, but I do love leaving on a positive note. And I hope, I don't know if there are too many in this episode, but what message do you have for parents who are living with this every day?
That there is help, there is support for parents, and that recovery is always possible. And I mean, I'm the example of that. 27 years ago, I was in real dire straits and I didn't have a will to live. And I've been able to turn that around and help others and be passionate about carrying a message of recovery is possible. And that there's always hope.
I think I should have called this podcast Hope, because I think I pretty much leave every episode with hope, but that's it. That's it. Hope and effort and not giving up.
Not thinking you've trying things. You're going to make mistakes. That's okay. I make mistakes all the time. And I can just say, sorry, I was wrong. All right. I made that.
Yeah. This parenting thing it's really hard. I mean,
it's about progress and progress, gets you a little bit closer to more progress. Practice makes progress. So there's always hope, and find hopeful people that carry a message of hope to you, because they need that. Parents need to scaffold themselves up. They go through an awful lot. They're under a lot of stress and pressure.
I know.
So I want to acknowledge that and acknowledge the hard work that parents and caregivers do.
Your recovery and what you've done for so many is honestly incredibly inspiring.
Thank you so much.
This is a much needed topic, and I'm truly grateful that we had this talk. So, Susan, you are welcome back anytime.
Thank you. And thanks for making it happen.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. We'll be in touch.
Okay.